Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Black Voices and Bold Visions. My name is Sarah Heemstra. I'm our Student Life Coordinator here, and I am so honored to introduce you to our MC of the night, JoJo Miller. She is one of our student ambassadors on the Student Life team.
Hello. Oh, I thought it wasn't going to work at first. I'm JoJo. I'm the president of the Black Student Union here at CCC. It has been an honor to be club president this year. I've really loved the things that we've done, from the discussions we've had to being able to put on this event. I'm really nervous. Last year, there was one member of BSU, and it was me. We did have a president, but she has since transferred over to NAU completely. And so I took over BSU and was also the only member. And luckily, our wonderful members came and have been coming for the last 2 semesters. And I have faith that BSU will continue after I'm gone. Hopefully, if someone takes over president, maybe you guys can pressure them into taking over. Because if no one takes over, BSU doesn't exist here. So let's think about that. I'm very excited to introduce the people we have paneling tonight. These are people who have just been wonderful forces in this community and making sure that this community can keep going. And I think we all have something to take away from them tonight. So I would first like to introduce Mr. Deborah Nichols. If you could come to the stage and take your seat. And then next I would like to introduce Dr. Coral Evans. And next I would like to introduce Kim Robinson. And next would be Miss Sissy Hickman, but I do not know. Oh, there she is. She's coming. Hello. So there are 2 microphones, if you guys could just pass it between the 4 of you. I would like to first start by having you each introduce yourselves. If you could just briefly tell everyone who you are, what you do, and such. It doesn't have to be too long because we do have our questions. Thank you.
All right, my name is Deborah Nichols, owner-operator of Cuts Enterprises. I have a barber college, beauty college, and a unisexual barber salon, also a venue called The Vibe, where they host parties and things like that. That's me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Coral Evans. I currently am the Northern Arizona Director for U.S. Senator Mark Kelly. Previous to this role, I was the mayor of the city of Flagstaff, Arizona.
Hello, I am Sissy Hickman, and God, they got a lot of stuff after their names. All I have is that I'm a native of Flagstaff, born and raised here, a wealth of information, so any questions you might have, I might have the answer. So thank you again, I'm Sissy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Robinson. Been in Flagstaff since 2009. I'm a small business owner and a small business advisor. I'm also the project coordinator for Sunnyside Neighborhood Association's The Live Black Experience Project and the Flagstaff Freedom School.
So now that you're all introduced, I would like to ask you each the question, and if you could just take turns answering. Each of you has very deep roots here. What is your first memory that comes to mind when you think of this town?
My first memory of this town is a whole bunch of woods, a lot of development going on around here. But when I grew up, it was a lot of woods and a lot of place to play at and things like that. Now it's kind of getting a city vibe going, which I don't like too much because of traffic. I don't come to the west side.
My first memory of Flagstaff was actually before I moved here. I was a truck driver. I guess I still am. I have a Class A CDL, and I drove a truck through here on I-40, and it was a bunch of woods. And I remembered I stopped out in Doney Park, parked my truck, and got away up to the mall. I remember the movie theater being in the mall, and I still remember remnants of the sawmill.
My first memory of Flagstaff is just that. I was born and raised here, and I was one of 14 kids. So, having been here for my whole life, the first memory was just being born and raised in the Brennan Homes Project, 1 through 48, and it was just us kids. Back then, kids played with each other. I don't see kids on the street anymore, but that was my first memory, and parents. We took care of parents, grandparents, whoever needed a place. That's where I was at.
So my first memory of Flagstaff, I currently live in the house that my grandfather built in 1942. My mom was born here. My family has a total of 6 generations in northern Arizona. Understanding that there's people who've been here since time immemorial, so 6 generations is really nothing. My first memory, though, is coming to my grandparents' house. It was snowing. My mom had decided to move back. Me and my twin brother, I have a twin brother, he's 4, drove up. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. And I remember my grandpa coming out of the house and carrying my brother in the house, and then coming back to the car and carrying me in the house. And we were 4 at that time.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I would like to start with Mr. Nichols. Are there any particular experiences that led you to becoming a barber and opening your shop here in Flagstaff?
Well, I was working at a Coconino station, Hispanic family, the Frescas family. That was my first job, and I was getting in a lot of trouble. I used to sell drugs, and the stuff that comes with being a black person. You either go to college for sports, or you go to the military, or you go back to the hood and sell drugs, right? So I couldn't read, so once I went to college, I failed out really quick, right? Quickly, I was back in Flagstaff trying to do what everybody else at my age was doing, was selling drugs, but it just didn't work for me. People at the Coconino station, I was still getting in trouble, getting DUIs, assault charges, things like that. And I remember my last DUI I got, this time before the last DUI, the judge said, if I see you again, I'm sending you to prison. So then I got another DUI. I go to court in my sandals, and I'm like, she was like, oh, I put your paper to the side. So I'm thinking to myself, is this the prison side? I'm thinking I'm going to prison. And she was like, unfortunately, the cop who arrested you is no longer a part of the Flagstaff Police Department. So I'm like, what are you saying? So your charges has been dropped. Everybody that got arrested or anything that has something to do with this police officer, all their charges got dropped. And I think that was God telling me, hey, this is not the route for you. So that day I went home, I sold the rims off my car, and I went to Phoenix to this barber school, and I walked through the door, and I told my buddy next to me, I said, this is the door of success, you know what I mean? I was exaggerating, but man, that's how I got started, man. I was messing up, and I didn't want to be like everybody else, eventually it's you get that fork in the road, and you just got to take that road and take the right route. And I've been blessed, and I tell my kids all the time, like, man, I got lucky because this wasn't supposed to be like it is, and they're very fortunate that I don't drink no more, I don't smoke no more, I don't do none of that no more, because I want to show a better example for them. Because, growing up in my neighborhood, everybody drank, everybody smoked weed every day. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up with that. And I had to let that go so I can start a new generation of being successful. Now my son, he was struggling in grades. Now he a 4.0 student at the high school, and I bought him a new Corvette. You know what I mean? Because that's how serious it is to me. And I get a little flack. Oh, you shouldn't have got him that. He didn't earn it. Hell yeah, he earned it. I don't know what you mean he didn't earn that, because I had all Fs. I'm telling y'all, man, I just learned how to read 10 years ago. I had all F's. So for him to do that and go from struggling to a 4.0, it really made me proud.
That's absolutely powerful. And thank you so much for sharing that. Next, we're going to go to Dr. Evans. You made Arizona history as the very first Black mayor elected, setting the bar for so many Black young men and women. Did you ever feel the weight of being the first or the only in that room? And how did that shape what you tried to accomplish?
So I want to go back to a story real quick because Cut is being really, really humble. And I just want to make put a point on what he just said. So, Cut mentioned that he learned how to read 10 years ago. One of the things that Cut did when he set up his barbershop is that he did a reading circle with the guys that were coming in there at that time, right? So he was like, look, it took me, and I think you told me it took you like 7 times to pass that test, right? But you learned how to read so you could pass the test. So when he set up the shop, what he did was he would close the shop a half an hour early, and he said, I'm gonna pay you guys to sit here for half an hour, but then you gotta volunteer for half an hour so you all can learn how to read. And he actually led that reading circle. And I think that's extremely powerful, right? For somebody to be like, I was here, now I'm here, and now I'm gonna make sure that the door stays open for everybody else. So I just wanna make sure that I mention that. So I had the absolute privilege of being the first Black woman elected, actually Black person elected to the position of mayor in the state of Arizona. Was it hard? It was definitely interesting. It had its challenges. I went through the usual of people thinking that I was the chief of staff if there was a person standing next to me, right? So if I walk into a room and there's anybody else standing next to me, they're gonna go to that person as the mayor before they realize that I'm actually the one that's the mayor. I also had on council someone complain to the city manager that I spend a lot of time on the road, going here, there, everywhere, talking to kindergarten groups, all these little other groups, right? And so my question back to the city manager was, have I failed in my duty as a mayor? Have I missed one meeting for the city of Flagstaff? One event? No. So then what are we talking about? Well, you're here, you're there, you're all doing all this stuff outside the city of Flagstaff. I'm like, oh, on my own dime? Okay. So then I had to sit the city manager down at that time and explain to them what it meant to be the first. I go, I am the first. That means no one else has ever seen anything that looked like this, right? And so now everybody's wanting to see what this looks like. So I'm gonna go talk to that youth group, that Boy Scout group, that Girl Scout group, that church group. Whoever picks up the phone and tells me they want me to come and talk to that group, that's where I'm going. Because I wanna make sure that every single one of those kiddos, every single one of those women, every single one of those young men know that it's possible. I grew up in the projects right here in Flagstaff, Arizona. I grew up in Seiler Homes, 3461 East Elder Drive, right? Went on to get my GED, and then went on to get my PhD. My twin brother is a medical doctor. So I was like, I'm gonna make sure that everybody knows what is possible. It's not a dream, but it's a reality. So yeah, it was hard, but it was very interesting, right? I appreciated the opportunity to help educate a lot of people.
That's a beautiful answer, thank you. Ms. Hickman, you've seen this town change demographically, economically, and politically. What has changed for the better, and what has changed for the worse?
Okay, which do you want first?
Either one.
Better. Okay, for the worst. There was a time in Flagstaff. You got to remember, I was born in the 40s. Okay, so as I look in Flagstaff now, south of the tracks, you never saw a white person. There was no one white on the south side. Everyone north was white Flagstaff, and south was Black Flagstaff. Now, to my sadness, we don't have any black business or anything on the south side. Our old one old bar that used to be down there, the El Rancho Grande, that literally was boarded up, and a skyscraper, a big 3-story place is basically taking the place of our old Rancho Grande. We had the Elks Club, that closed. We had this place called Mr. Charlie Scotus. He was a Mexican gentleman that had a pool hall for all of the kids to come. Certain times we could come to the pool hall. That vanished. Then we had another gentleman across the street from him. We're still on South San Francisco. His name was Mr. Slim. And Mr. Slim had all black hair products and stuff for us, just for us. All of those things are gone. There was a tamale shop that left. Let me see, the tamale shop. Oh, and then we had it was a Mexican family, the tourist home. I don't know if any of you have seen the tourist home down Flagstaff. Okay, that was a Mexican family that run that, and they vanished. So basically, everything on the south side is gone. And you don't see, and it's amazing to me, even now, to see all white people on the south side of Flagstaff. Because it was a no-no. I mean, literally, when I was a kid, we knew not to go across the tracks. The tracks was our cutoff. So I've seen that, and I didn't like that. Okay, to see the goodness of Flagstaff, personally, I don't like a lot of the growth. Because with the growth, I don't see the growth being a part of everyone. I don't see it as everyone. Basically, now in Flagstaff, you really almost have to have money to live in Flagstaff.
It's changing, but changing for who?
Huh?
It's changing, but it's not changing for us. You know,
Right.
it's
No.
getting better for other people,
No.
but not for
No.
our community here.
And one last thing too, what really happened, I was telling Miss Robinson as we was driving, the spotted owl, I had a problem with the spotted owl. Because the spotted owl, you guys are all young, but the spotted owl in Flagstaff really took away the logging industry for black people, black men that migrated from the south to Flagstaff, McNairy, those places. And after the spotted owl in the late 70s and the 80s, that was it, the logging industry. And we don't see a huge black population here. And it's because there was no work. Everybody had to bamboos. So those are my things.
Thank you so much. Miss Robinson, your work with the lived Black experience is vital, but when I first moved here, I hadn't heard of it. In a town where Black spaces are so few and far between, what is the biggest barrier to getting the word out about what you're building, and what do you need from the rest of us to help amplify it?
So just one of the barriers is that I can't be 12 places at once. So that's it's just a matter of not expecting people to find us. So when I moved to Flagstaff, I'm originally from Decatur, Georgia, which is right outside Atlanta. So Black people, we were there. My elementary school and high school were 99% Black. So we were within reach. And I bounced around a lot being in the military. And then coming to Flagstaff, my husband and I fell in love with this wonderful town. Coming here, I realized that we're here, but we're spread out. And I cannot do this work expecting people to find us. Like, you can't find LBE. LBE has to come to you. So I spent a lot of time trying to get up in people's faces. And it's not just Black people. It's like anyone who is Black adjacent. I've spent time working with the hospital when they have travel nurses. And the travel nurses are like, I can't find anybody to do my hair. And so I refer them to cut all the time. So it's just a matter of being a resource. But with this work, one of the barriers is just finding us and making sure I meet the folks that need us where they are. And JoJo, you've always been a great help. But it's just a matter of having an amplification. So now that you know about us, You know about the Flagstaff Freedom School now. You know about the Live Black Experience Project. You know about Sunnyside Neighborhood Association. You know about Miss Sissy, and you know about CUT. Now that you know this, you have this knowledge, just amplify it for us. And it is a little awkward because I'll be in the grocery store, I'll see a black person, I'll be like, hey, you know, it's like, it's one of us. So I go up and introduce myself and I start talking and I give them flyers and everything. And sometimes it's a little awkward. You know, people are like, why are you acting so weird? Okay. The Decatur comes out in me, but it's just a matter of amplification now. And we're here as a resource for everyone. And when you uplift the black community, everyone gets uplifted. So if you know anyone that needs a resource, anyone that needs a tentacle out in the community, it's just a matter of amplifying, because now you have the knowledge. Now, I don't have an excuse. None of us have an excuse to be like, I don't know what resources are out there. We have the knowledge, and we just make sure those that need help, make sure we are the resource for them.
Thank you so much for that answer. I think that is 100% true. And now that all of our BSU knows about all of these organizations, I really hope we're able to get into them more and attend more events around town and stuff. So, back to Mr. Nichols. For the black community, hair is identity, hair is survival, and hair is connection. What conversations are happening in your chairs that don't happen anywhere else in town, and what have you learned from listening?
Like I was telling you guys earlier, really is like personal conversations. Things that's happening at home, things that's happening with the wife or the husband, things like that. That's crucial. I might be having a bad day, and then somebody coming in having a terrible day, and then it comes back to me like, damn, my life is not that bad. So, like I was telling these guys earlier, like if I got a job I'm just with my coworkers. I have coworkers, and I don't have masses amount of people coming in, different problems coming in the door. I might not look at life like I do, right? So, but now, I mean, doing it for 20 years, it's like, man, my life ain't that bad. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much what conversations that come through the door, and that's what I've learned from it. That everybody's different. Everybody got a different walk. I just been in a situation where I go to the homeless shelter, and one of my students is, they can afford this, they can afford that, and I had to check them like, hey man, you don't know where this person came from. He could have been a doctor or a lawyer, and something happened to this person, and he clicked out, he tapped out, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, his kid could have died. Anything could have happened to that person to put him where he is today. So never judge nobody, because you just don't know. You never know what somebody's going through. You know what I mean? You always have mental health issue. I mean, not you always have mental health issues. Not everybody don't have mental health issues, but most of us do. They have something going on. Something might happen to them in their life. Somebody come in the shop acting a damn fool before, and I'm like, something might happen to them earlier today that made them come in here already wound up. Sometimes you got to give people a pass. You can't beat everybody up. Because I got some riders over there. You can't come over there acting crazy. You know what I'm saying? They ain't playing no games. But like I said, I got to calm them down. Like, you just don't know what that person's been through. So that's pretty much what I've learned from being in that industry.
That answer, yeah. Sometimes you gotta just be like, okay, I need to chill a little bit. Dr. Evans. There are many black women who feel they need to be twice as good to be just as good. When you walked into a room as mayor, did you feel the need to over-prepare, over-prove, or over-perform?
Always, right? Because as a black person in general, you really can't slip up, right? Because if you slip up, then the whole entire race slipped up. If a black person does something, the headline's going to be, at least when I was a kid, the headlines was black person did this, African American did this. And I think a really good example for this question is the second time I ran for office. I was rerunning for council, and I was up on a podium much like this, and there were 6 people at that time running for council. And so we went through the usual debate questions, and then they opened it up to the audience. So one lady jumps up from the back of the room and makes a beeline. And you guys will understand when I say this. You can just see stupid walking, right? You can just see it. Here it comes on 2 feet walking towards you. And so she's like, I have a question. And she points at me, I have a question for her. So I'm like, okay, because I already knew it was going to be for me. And the lady was like, do you have any education? And I was like, excuse me, do you have an educational background? Like, everything you said was good, but I'm really interested in your educational background. So I was like, great, yes, I had at that time an MBA. So I went down my, qualifications. And then she's like, oh, you are educated. And then she turned around and she left. So the lady who was doing the facilitation was like, okay, we have another question. I was like, excuse me. And she's like, yeah. I go, no one else answered this question. And she was like, oh, well, the question was only asked for you. I go, but we're voting on 3 people for city council. As someone who's voting for 3 people, I would like to know the educational background on everybody sitting up here. Unsurprisingly, I was the most educated. One of the individuals sitting there only had a high school degree, right? And so I think it's a yes, right? Are Black women usually over-prepared? Always. And I'm only speaking on behalf of Black women. I know Black men are too, but we're over-educated, we're over-prepared, because that's the way we get into certain spaces. I think that's also reflected in the student loan crisis that we have going on. Black women are the most educated, but Black women also carry the most tuition debt, the most school debt. And I think that's very sad that we have to walk in with credentials just to get in the door, where other people can sit up on a podium and not have any credentials but never get asked. That's just reality. Is it the right reality? No. Should we be changing that? Yes. But the reality here right now in this country is that we have to be over-prepared all the time.
And I definitely feel that. There are so many instances where I've heard other Black students, just both here and at NAU, talk about how they've been accused of plagiarism just because they sound a bit smart or they're using a big word. So I think that is preposterous that she did that. I'm very sorry. Miss Hickman, what have you learned from your parents or your grandparents, not just about living, but surviving in a predominantly white town such as this one?
Well, unfortunately, they were kind of gone before this predominantly white town existed. My father's been gone 30 years, so they've been gone a long time. But what I personally have learned, they always told us, you do the right thing. You do the right thing first. Always listen, be kind, and you just go from there. But I don't know. That's basically for me, is just to do the right thing and to be me. I have to be me because I kind of have a rough edge around me, but and I can be kind and I can be nice, but I can also kind of go the other way. So it's how you treat me is how I treat you, and that's what it is, okay? But one other thing that you didn't just ask, but it's something I wanted to say just for a minute. I would like to say, when we were talking about where we're from and what we've done, I would like to say Murdoch is also a part of this community. Ms. Deb has done a lot, and I would like the world to know that, this audience to know that. So I wanted you to know.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Robinson, when we look back at historic moments of Black activism, unity was often a matter of survival. In today's world, what do you think is at stake if we fail to come together now?
We'll lose history. We'll lose ourselves. What's happening now is, as I go out and teach history, collectively, the majority of society has become a bunch of punk-ass bitches, really, because history is not there to make you feel bad, to make you feel a certain way. History is something that has happened, and it's something that cannot be forgotten. We can be in interpersonal relationships, and we can know the history of the person that we're with and still accept them, and we still marry them, and we still team with them. And we tell people, don't be ashamed of your past because it's made you who you are today. And for some reason, collectively, the United States of America, we cannot get to that. We cannot seem to understand that our past, the country that was built on black and brown backs, is what has made us who we are today. If you think we are a wonderful country, if you're telling people if you don't love it, leave it, then you have to also understand and accept the history that has come and brought us to the point that's made us great. No one gets here magically. So if we keep on this track and we keep losing stuff and we keep being cowardly and we keep trying to hide history, we're going to lose ourselves completely. And we have got to retain that. And we need to stop looking at people who are trying to teach us the truth as our enemy. And it's really easy when you've been the majority, when you've been coddled, when you've been, when laws and policies have been made to benefit you, and laws and policies have been made to actively oppress people that do not look like you. If you generationally cannot take advantage of that 400, 500-year spread that you've been given, and you haven't figured that out yet, how to take advantage of that, there's nothing that history can do for you. What you can do is learn it, not repeat it, and make sure your ascendants also learn from it as well. So let's not lose ourselves. We need to be brave, we need to be bold, and we need to be unapologetic.
100%. I agree. So before our closing question, we are going to have some questions from the audience. So if we could get that extra microphone ready, please. If anyone here has questions for any of them, please just raise your hand and someone will bring a microphone to you.
Okay. So living in a predominantly white town, how do you deal with like ignorance, just plain ignorance, and also like microaggressions to people who just simply don't know? Like, because there's been so many times where there's just things have been directed at me and I could just tell that person doesn't have the knowledge, but it's also like, I don't know if I should take that time to educate them because I don't want to accuse them of just being a racist if you're just plain ignorant. So like, what do you suggest to do in situations like that?
And now, I'll say that it takes maturity. I think it takes maturity. And not saying that you're immature or anyone's immature. It takes being around that. So the microaggressions can be annoying, but you don't have to accuse someone of being racist. You can just stop them and say, what did you mean by that? And I think when you stop and push them on it and question them, it will cause a response to be different. And I find something very interesting from the time I've lived in the South, born and raised in the South, to coming out to the Southwest. In the South, you can look and see who is against you because people are blatant. The Confederate flags are going up there. It's pretty blatant. Out here in the Southwest, the issues that I've had most of the time are other brown people. So dealing with, when I go into the schools, I also go into the schools and help students that are dealing with being called racist names. So recently, my 9-year-old son, he got called the N-word 10 days ago at school. And it came from 2 Hispanic students. The incident before that, and my kids have gone through more than I think they should go through. The incident before that, he was in 3rd grade. He got called the N-word by an indigenous student. And so here, I find that is different because when I went to school, the 2 white people that were in my school, no, I'm just kidding, there were more than that. But I knew that hate, that kind of racism, came from white people. Out here, the microaggressions and the push come from other brown people. It's a very interesting contrast. But with microaggressions, if you stop and push back, you can sweep them off, because if people are intimidated by your presence, let them be, that's their problem. But it's also personality. I'm very confrontational. So I would be all up in their face and like, okay, what's your issue? But again, not my problem.
I want to follow up on that too, because I think that you all are young, and if you could learn anything now, is to protect your peace, right? Don't wait until you're in your 50s to be like, I need to protect my peace. You need to protect it now. So if you're somewhere and you're getting the wrong vibe, you can leave, right? You can walk off and leave those people right where they're at. My mom used to say, because my mom was a school teacher, she said, as a school teacher, you get to the point that you understand who can be taught and who cannot learn, right? So if it's somebody that you're talking to and they say something that just sounds ignorant, and you feel that, hey, you know what? I think I'll take my time, because your time is precious. Your time is valuable, right? Your time you're not going to get back. If it's something that you feel like you want to take the moment to educate that person, then you should do that. But you also need to take a step back and look, right? If it's continuous, if the vibe's off, whatever. You were looking for friends when you found that one. I hate to be that blunt, but there's no reason for you to be sitting there with your peace, like, all disturbed. Protect it at all costs.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that. I worked as a nurse at Flagstaff Hospital, and I had this gentleman. He was an older gentleman, and no matter what I did, he was my assigned patient. No matter what I did, it wasn't okay. And so one day I walked in, and he was with another aide that was working on him instead of with me. And so when the young lady left, she said, you know, Miss Sissy, I'm sorry that he took me. I said, oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of him. And so when it was time for his shots and his medication, he literally wanted nothing to do with me. But this was an educated white man, very educated man, okay? And so he finally, after I said, okay, sir, you refuse to have me do something for you, so I'll just let someone else take care of you. And before he left that hospital, when I got to work that day, it was this great big old box of Russell Stover's candy on the on the desk. And one of the nurses said, Miss Sissy, that candy is for you. I said, for me? And she said, yes. She said, the gentleman that would not let you take care of him left that for you. Very interesting. And so he hadn't left. And he saw me in the hall, and he said, ma'am, may I speak to you? And I said, yes, sir. And so he told me, he said, you know what? It's not that you're not a good nurse. I'm just not used to people like you taking care of me. I don't trust you with my body. And that's how things go. And you just have to move on for that. I thanked him, took my big box of candy, and had a party. There you go. Oh, okay.
Okay, well, I'm trying to be a little bit nicer, but if you bring that racist stuff to me, it might be a problem. Straight up. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I learned a lot, and I got kids, and I got a lot to live for. But keep it away from me. That's all I got to say. You know what I'm saying? It's hard, man. It's hard. You know what I'm saying? And I came from the streets, so keep it away from me. That's all I got to say. I can't lie to y'all.
Thank you for your very honest answer. Are there any other questions from, oh, awesome, there's a few. Oh, Talia has the microphone. Okay, and then we'll go to Brian and then Marcia.
I have a, it's not really vague, but it's more specific. You guys been around in Flagstaff and helped in various ways racially for all of us, not just the Black community, but just as a whole. And I want to bring up hair politics because I've been living in Chicago most of my life, and I moved here like 10 years ago. And I remember like my mom getting rejected from a job because her hair was like very kinky. And I was wondering if you guys ever experienced like being rejected from a job or not being offered a job because of your hair texture? Because I have, personally, at a Ross that I went to an interview for, and they didn't reject me not because I wasn't qualified, but it was because of my hair texture and it wasn't professional. So I was wondering if you guys had any experience with that, or if you guys dealt with any crucifixion of wearing your natural hair and being forced to like wear wigs or whatever that makes other people, white people, feel more comfortable.
Well, I mean, something like that. You know, the way I look, period. I've had people come into the shop and ask, "Who's the owner?" And they point at me, and then they go to the next person and ask them, "Who's the owner?" And they say, "He just told you it's him." You know, just the way I look. So it could be your hair. It just could be your damn skin. And I just had this preach. I was preaching to somebody today. It don't matter what color you is. If somebody don't like you, they just don't like you. You know what I'm saying? And we just get a lot of hate just because we're black. So it's gonna happen regardless, just because you're black and they just don't like you. You know what I'm saying?
So I will say that I have been wearing protective hairstyles since I was 20. I've had breast cancer 3 times. Half the time I don't have hair. So it's just one of those things I've just naturally been doing. And so I wouldn't say that I have personally been discriminated against because of that. I will tell you, though, that Representative Quanta Cruz, who is a representative, I believe, for District LD 26 or 27, has been running the Crown Act bill every year since she has been elected down in Phoenix at the state capitol, because there are issues, right? There's issues with people who have their hair in locks. There's issues with people who have their hair in afros. There's issues with people that don't have hair, right? Because they choose to wear that style. And she has not been able to get it enacted. So we know it's an issue, or else there wouldn't be a bill that someone would be trying to run. We know that it's passed in other states, right? But it has not yet passed here in Arizona. And so I will just tell you that. I know that my daughter has a problem, or she had a problem, with people just running up to her and putting their hands in her hair, right? That kind of stuff. You know, when I was younger and out and about, people would try to pull your hair to see if it was attached. All that kind of foolishness. The last time someone tried to put their hands in Destiny's hair was probably the last time they will ever try that, right? Because sometimes you just got to turn around and tell people, no, right? It's not a petting zoo. Don't touch my clothes, don't touch my hair, don't touch my skin. But it's definitely an issue. So I just want to acknowledge that.
I was a CPS worker for about 15 to 20 years here in Flagstaff, okay? So I did a lot of court work, lots of court work. And I never will forget this one really racist lady with 2 little kids. And I had afro, I really had a big afro then. And so the day we had to go to court, the kid was a sweet kid. And so when we got to the court, through the judges, this lady literally walked up to the judge and asked him, "That nappy-headed lady, is she gonna represent me and my kid and I?" And the judge basically put her out of the courtroom, okay? So it happens. It happens. It wasn't the kid, but it's ignorant parents. So yes, it does happen. I had a big afro and I was proud of it, and my high heels and all my stuff. And that's the way it went. Oh, you got one?
Yeah. Yeah, it is an issue. The earliest time I had a problem with it was when I went to the University of Georgia and joined Air Force or ROTC. And my junior year, Major Alan Worley, what happened was, when you're in ROTC, you get up 5 mornings a week. We're up there running at 6 a.m. in the morning. And right after that, I had to be at work. I worked for food services at 7:15. And then I had an 8:30 class. So I spent a lot of the time with my hair in cornrows. I've been cornrowing my own hair since I was 9 years old. So I would cornrow my hair, leave it in cornrows for about a week, undo it, then do different designs and stuff. And so when I went in with my counseling session with Major Worley, he told me that I should change my hairstyle because my cornrows were fattish. And keep in mind, University of Georgia is a PWI, is a predominantly white institution. And so to him, what he saw were the white young ladies there wearing cornrows in their hair. And it was faddish because it came and went while I was in college. But for me, cornrows were not a fad, and I had to correct him. He said cornrows are a fad. I said, not for me. I grew up with this. This is part of my community. My mother cornrowed my hair, I cornrowed my hair, all my cousins, my aunts, we all cornrow our hair as part of our culture. And fortunately, he didn't push back. I think he understood, he got it. And so that was an issue. And now there's a reason why and people make fun of it, but there's a reason why when we go around and we see other black women, we say, wear your hair, queen. We call each other queens. Some people don't understand why we're doing that. It's because we're being told constantly, you need to change something about yourself in order to be acceptable. In women in general, we're being told you need to dress a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way, be acceptable to everybody else. So yeah, there are issues. What I did was I stopped giving a damn. I stopped relaxing my hair like 20 years ago. And so it's more, again, I say, it's not my problem if you have an issue with the way my hair grows out of my head. And I especially stopped after I stopped relaxing. If I wanted to, I would use a hot comb. Everyone knows what a hot comb is, right? Hot comb. Okay. So, because some people are like, what? So I would burn my hair with a hot comb if I wanted my hair straight. But I stopped doing that, especially after my youngest son was born, because he had another incident in school when he was very young. And one of his friends made a comment about his hair, saying that his hair was weird. And it took me 2 years for him to stop asking me to shave off all his hair because his hair was weird. And so from that time forward, I made sure he touched my hair, he played in my hair. And of course, my family, they can always come up and come all up in my hair, but that sounds bad. They can be all up in my hair, but it's one of those things where, especially for my kids, they need to see that black hair is beautiful. So I say, wear your hair, queen. Wear your hair unapologetically. If people don't get it, that's on them. And if they have an issue with the way your hair grows out of your head, that's on them.
Thank you so much for that. And we have more audience questions.
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys for being here. I really think this is a great opportunity for our students and also staff and faculty to hear and learn a lot about our community. So thank you for that. My question is about, with the recent attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think there's always a great opportunity to hear from parents and community members, what constructive advice do you have for our leaders in higher education in dealing with those attacks?
I love to talk about this. It's fun. Okay, so first of all, I think we need to stop dumbing things down to their acronyms, right? So diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do those things mean? I know I have people coming up to me. I was down in Sedona and having this conversation, and the lady was talking about DEI, and I was like, what is DEI? I was like, oh, diversity, equity, inclusion. I was like, well, I'm American. I love being American. I like hot dogs. I don't want to eat hot dogs every single day. I want some diversity in my food, right? Equity. I go, well, do you feel yourself having the ability to respond and to talk and to incorporate your thoughts into how you're governed? Do you think that that's important? Do you want to be included in the process? Why would anybody not want to be included in the process? I think one of the problems that we have here in this country is that we always want to put something down to an acronym or a buzzword, right? Like Black Lives Matter, BLM. What the heck does that mean? I think we need to start actually taking the time to spell it out. I know that I was at this particular meeting, and this European American lady came up to me, and she was like, well, you've benefited from DEI, and don't you think that things have changed now? And so I just had to ask her, I was like, well, ma'am, you know, how old are you? She came to age, I think, in like the 50s or the 60s. And she had a wonderful career in aerospace engineering. And I was like, wow. And I was like, so, again, what were your degrees? She has I think she had a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering. I'm like, so you came of age in a predominantly male job in the 70s, early 80s, and you don't think you benefited? Because I was like, I know for a fact I wasn't even there, so I didn't benefit from it. And then I had to hit her with some statistics. You got to be over-prepared. That the people who have benefited most from diversity, equity, and inclusion have been European American white women, period. She didn't like to hear it, but I had to tell her that. You know, and then I had to turn around and have everybody in the room raise their hands. How many of you have this degree? How many of you have this degree? How many have that degree? At that particular time, there was 4 black women in the room that had, call it doctorate degrees. No one else did. So I think that one of the things that we really need to start doing is calling bullshit on bullshit. There's no other way to put it, right? We're not talking about DEI. We're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I don't care what color you are, everybody wants to be included. Everyone wants to have a say. We all don't want to eat the same thing every day. We don't want to look at the same thing every day. We don't want to wear the same thing every day. So what is wrong with the diversity? What we're really talking about is not diversity. We're talking about the fact that we have a colonial mindset and we have a problem with the color of people's skin. We don't have a problem with diversity. We have a problem with black people. We have a problem with brown people. We have a problem with anybody that is different. LGBTQIA+, that's what we have a problem with, right? So I think we should start calling it out and asking people, why do you feel uncomfortable about that? Why do you have a problem with this? I think we just need to start being really blunt and not letting people skip out on what it is they really have an issue with.
And we should also remember that diversity, equity, inclusion is not just apparent race and gender. There are a lot of, and sorry, Cora, I'm gonna break down DEI. There are a lot of programs, affirmative action programs, that benefit other groups. I have benefited mostly from veterans programs. Veterans programs are part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've benefited from programs that are designed for people living in rural areas, like all of northern Arizona. That is part of equity. And a lot of us have been on panels or we've had discussions about health disparities in rural neighborhoods, in rural areas. That's part of equity and inclusion. There's discussions at the hospital now, accessible to affordable health care in a rural community. So what I would say to the senior leaders is stop being so narrow-minded, and what I've said to senior leaders, stop being so narrow-minded, educate yourselves and be bold and stop running from what is actually happening. Yes, the problem is people tend to be okay with a lot of stuff, but when you come down to black people, black programs, Black History Month, Juneteenth, Kwanzaa, if you watch social media, and I'm not encouraging it, but if you watch social media, you'll see that everything else is fine. You can have the Fiesta de la Independencia. You can have all these wonderful programs. You can have art shows strictly for the indigenous. No one says anything about that, but when you come down to blackness, it becomes an issue. It is an issue. So yes, we need to just understand that there's an issue. There's an issue with blackness. But the leaders, I recommend you challenge leaders on, do they really know what diversity, equity, and inclusion is? And you can ask them, so what's your problem with veterans? Because we're part of that too. The federal government has many programs where veterans are put to the top of stacks for hiring because originally, for every American, out of 10 Americans, only veterans would be 40% of the workforce. So there was a big disparity with veterans being hired in the federal government and civilians being hired because of the transferable skills. So I would tell you, push back and say, what's your problem with veterans? It also includes the differently abled. It also includes those that have been diagnosed with a mental illness. That's what it really is. So make sure you keep it real with them and make sure they understand what diversity, equity, inclusion really is.
Mr. Nichols does have to leave, so he will be taking his final moments on the stage. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you for your answers. Oh. Were there any more questions from the audience? Oh, yes, Marcia.
I don't know if this isn't. I was listening to what you had to say, and I myself, this semester especially, have had a lot of trouble fitting in with certain things. But anyway, as a Native American with a disability, and I find it hard to find places where I'm actually accepted for who I am, because I'll say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and it just happened quite a bit here this year. So I'm kind of feeling like I don't know, but anyway, on account of that, did all of you how do you guys deal with negativity towards who you are as a African American person? If that makes sense.
I've never felt negative. I've always liked myself, so I'm good. Matter of fact, to say this, for me to say what I said, honey, is I come from parents. My mom was very outspoken and a social butterfly. And she always made us feel that although she had 14 kids, we all felt alike, okay? My dad was more, he was more of a recluse than mama. So, but he still always told all of us, you can do whatever you want to do. And believe it or not, when we all learned to drive, the only way our dad allowed the girls to learn how to drive, you know how that was? We had to know how to change the oil. We had to know how to change the tire. We had to know how to work jumper cables. So I've always felt a part of being okay. And it comes from parents. Parents allow you to be, basically, for me, allowed me to be who I am. So I'm okay. I'm good.
I got one.
Oh, you got one?
So I would say that when you started talking, it reminded me of something that my mom used to tell me and my twin brother when we were little, right? So we've always been this color. This is always the color that I've been. And most of the places that we go, it was either me and my twin brother. As we gotten older, right? He lives in Phoenix, I live here. Half the time, I'm the only person that looks like this in any room I walk into. And one of the things she used to say is that God's archangels are black. She goes, there's a reason why you stand out. I think if you ask most black people, if someone needs help, for some reason they could always find us. They'll walk past every other person there to find the black person, and ask the black person for help with something. And I would say probably 10 times out of 10, that black person is gonna do something to try to help that individual. She just said, remember that. She goes, there's a reason why you stand out and look the way you do. You're going to be hated for your color. You're gonna be loved for your color. She said that there was 10 billion people, and I know she had the numbers wrong, but this is how my mom was. She said, there's gonna be 10 billion people on the face of this earth. The majority of those people you will never meet. Another percentage of those people are gonna hate you, and they've never even seen you. She goes, if you're lucky, a handful of those people are gonna get to know you, and out of that handful of people, maybe 2 or 3 are actually gonna be your friends and your people. She says, you just need to remember that. You're not here to be liked by anybody. That's not your role here. Your role here is to figure out what it is you were put on this face of the earth to do, and go do it. And if you're lucky, you'll meet some people that are gonna walk that path with you. And I know that it's hard being a young person. I think that, when I was growing up, it was probably a lot different. I think the young people nowadays, you just have so much stuff that's being thrown at you all that's just absolutely ridiculous, right? But that's why I told this young man right here, you got to learn now in your 19 or 20s how to protect your peace. Because if you don't, they're going to run you ragged, okay? That's what they're going to do. I think there's literally people that are out there and their sole purpose in life is to pull you out your peace, okay? So I would just tell you, you need to go find your people. And if you are standing any place and you're looking around and you don't see your people, those are not your people. You need to go find your people. Don't stay where don't let, how do the old people say? Don't let the door hit you in your ass? Is that how they used to say it? And Jesus said something about don't let the dust settle on your feet or your sandals or something like that. Don't stay where you're not wanted.
I was going to say that too, little homie. Find your people, find your tribe. And it is difficult to do, and it also takes some very thick skin. And I think I'm around a lot of strong people. I love strong people. And I think that's because I'm a strong person. So if you're standing and there's a storm going around you, you maintain your peace, because eventually your people will find you as well. And when I say be unapologetic, don't change who you are. Don't try to act a different way. Stand tall, maintain your peace. And if you're around the right strong people and you don't feel compelled to shrink in their presence, those are your people. And if they don't understand that, that's not your tribe. And so I always tell people, don't ever shrink in my presence, because that's your way of telling me that you think I'm weak, and I'm not. No one should ever shrink in your presence, because that might be saying something like, I need to change myself to make this person understand who I am. Stand tall in your presence. Be who you are all the time.
Those were such lovely answers. Thank you.
I have one more thing I'd like to say. Oh, is it okay?
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. To add to that, Ms. Robinson, I have to say I was a twin. And my twin literally was, he was a bookworm. He was a very smart guy, okay? So I helped him. People didn't know this because he was an athlete. So he didn't know his friends didn't know who was helping him. But what I'm saying to say this is that I was a social butterfly. I didn't want to do what he did. I wanted to do something else. I wanted to be off doing what I wanted to do. So you just have to find who you are. And we were twins. We loved each other at home. But after that, at the schoolhouse, we was who we were. So find, as we say, find your people. And you will. You will find your people.
Thank you so much. So we have one more question from the audience, and then I'm going to invite Deborah Harris up to the stage for our closing message. That comes from Sarah over there.
Awesome, thank you. I want to bridge a little bit of our conversation with talking about community colleges, and thank you again for being here at CCC. So sometimes community colleges are overlooked by their university counterparts, and folks may think that they need the flashy four-year experience. And there's a lot of value that community colleges offer. I think everyone here would definitely sing high praises of community colleges. So sometimes, though, people have to walk in the door in order to understand that, and it's not necessarily something that you just get off the beat. You talked a lot about protecting your peace and, maintaining your identity throughout any room you find yourself in. So how have you overcome assumptions due to your Blackness while also protecting that peace and recognizing it's not your job to educate folks along the way? But yeah, just trying to, again, think sometimes people may look at you and think a certain thing, and that's oftentimes what happens with community colleges. So how are you continuing to take care of yourself wherever you may find yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm a fan of community colleges now. Unfortunately, I did not go to one. I just want to start off with that. I went straight from high school to a four-year college, and now I'm encouraging my sons to go to community college. So I told them if I could have gone back, I would have definitely gone to community college because being an older student at a four-year university makes a huge difference. It really does. So, yay, I'm a fan of CCC, definitely. I think, and you know, I'm trying to be kind, but to keep it real, I'm an asshole. I really am. And protecting my peace has become easier for me because I stopped caring about trying to impress anybody. And it happened pretty early on, especially going into the Air Force and especially being an officer and especially having to deal with people who still look at me and want to call me girl when they should be calling me lieutenant or captain. It got to the point where my skin got calloused. I got very calloused. And it's more like making sure you know that you're good enough for you. So protecting your peace, I would say, you got to become a bit of an asshole. You really do. Just like, I'm going to do me. I encourage you to do you. Don't worry about anything else.
Aside from my mom and dad caring about me, I really didn't care about other people. I really didn't. I had 6 sisters that was totally different than I was. And like I said, I was a social butterfly. I was out there doing what I wanted to do. But aside from my parents, I just kind of wore life loosely. And that was one of the things that my mom told me when I left home at 19. She told me, we lived in the project. She told me, she said, Sissy, I don't have any money. I don't have a car. I don't have anything to give you. She said, but I can give you one thing, and I learned it late in life. She said, when you get out in the world, wear it very loosely, because if you don't, it will eat you alive. And that's true.
That one.
Oh, you got one, okay.
Yeah. So I have 2 parts to this, right? So the first part is I am 8 credits short of my Coconino Community College degree, to be very clear, just so you guys know. Okay? 8 credits short. I left 8 credits laying on the table and bounced, got my bachelor's, and moved on. I love me some Coconino Community College. And there was a picture on the wall, that's that one right there, in 1991. Like, that's the college that I went to, that little bubble on the east side of town. Mm-hmm. And my daughter, Destiny, she got a full ride Gear Up scholarship. She got a second tier Gear Up scholarship where she got school paid for. She did the first 2 years here at CCC, and then she went and finished her degree at NAU. So she got an Associate's of General Studies here, went to NAU and got her criminology degree, and now she just got into the master's program in social work. So I just want to say I love me some Coconino Community College, okay? So that was the first part of it. Okay, the second part had to do with assumptions. There you are. You know what? Sometimes it's okay to let people assume things. Sometimes that's actually a good strategy. I can play real dumb when I need to. I can dress a different way when I need to get a different reaction. So when I was running for mayor, people were like, she's not gonna win, right? So I was out there doing my thing and letting people make all these assumptions about me. So 2 weeks before the election, one of the individuals came up to me and they said, you know what? We weren't paying any attention to you because we assumed you were gonna lose, we assumed you weren't gonna raise money, we had all these assumptions, we assumed you didn't know what you were doing because your strategy didn't look like anybody else's strategy. And now, somebody just ran some report, because they do these reports, and they're like, you too far out ahead. We can't even catch up with you. And then I ended up winning the election 2 weeks later. So sometimes it's okay to let people assume that you're stupid. Sometimes it's okay to let people assume that you don't have any type of education or degree. Sometimes it's okay to let them assume that you are the chief of staff and not the mayor, right? So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that. Sometimes it's okay to be the underdog because everybody else out there paying attention to everything else, and you're just working your plan. You know, think about when Obama became president. He really kind of came out of nowhere. He wasn't on the top list to become president. He was a junior senator, right? He'd only been there like 2 years or something like that. And all of a sudden he bounced from that position to being president of the United States of America because nobody was watching him. They were busy watching everybody else until it was too late and they couldn't keep up. So just remember that. Assumptions, sometimes they help you.
Thank you so much for those lovely answers for this whole night, and thank you for coming. That concludes the question and panel part of our event. Then next, we will be having a closing message from Deborah Harris. You guys are welcome to stay on the stage.
Can we do one more thing real quick?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, so who are members of the BSU? Let's stand up.
We're already here.
Stand up, stand up. Okay, everybody, so we went from one member of the BSU last year to a total of 6. Come on now, come on. We are super proud of you all.
Thank you so much. But you guys are welcome to stay on stage for the closing message or sit on the table if you would like. I would like to welcome to the stage Deborah Harris, who is currently, okay, I'm gonna call her Dr. Deb Harris. You are welcome.
Yeah, you know, thank you so much. This was an amazing panel. You have a lot of good history and experiences from folks that have lived in Flagstaff. Some were born here, some were raised here, and so the mark of a good speaker, closing speaker, is to try and pull all of that together and throw away my notes. Okay, so we're gonna kind of throw these notes away. I was gonna talk a little bit about the theme, and so I will talk just a very little bit about that. But then I want to try and see if I can pull all of this together, and I guarantee you that I won't be here very long. Because I know that you all, okay. I know that you all have been here for a little bit and you had your dinner and you're probably getting a little sleepy, so I don't want to put you to sleep. But the theme that they chose is very fitting for me personally. As I said, I have more time behind me than I have in front of me, okay? So I have more time behind me than I have in front of me. And when I saw this theme, I thought very specifically about a quote. And for those of you who went to Sunday school like I did, you'll recognize it. It says that your sons and daughters will prophesy, and your young people will see visions, and old people will dream dreams. So I have dreamed a lot of dreams. And I'm looking at the young people here, and I'm looking at now it's your turn. So what you heard this afternoon, this evening, is meant for you because we've had our turn. We're done. Like I say, I have more years behind me than I have in front of me. And so my role and our role is to stand behind you and hold you up. It is not to be in front of you. It's not even to be beside you. You need us holding you up and making sure that you do not stumble. For those of us who are in my role, who have more years behind you than you have in front of you, I am going to ask you to join me in holding them up and making sure that they don't stumble. Because it's very easy living in the times that we're living in for them to stumble. And if we don't have their backs, that will happen because they don't know what they don't know. For young folks, your role is to listen to your elders. It does not always mean that you're going to do what they tell you to do. It means that you're going to listen out of respect. You're going to weigh that information, And then you're going to make decisions that are based on all the information that you have available to you and on your decisions and on and on your vision. And so you all have visions that we have no clue about, okay? And so you need to hold on to those visions, you need to share those visions, and you need to move forward with those visions. I did want to mention just a couple things. We have folks on the stage that have been here for a while, but we also have sheroes and heroes in our Black community that sometimes don't get the recognition that they deserve. Kevin Chase, that just left here, works here at CCC. Kevin works with students, helping them realize their visions for the future. We have Crystal Wharton-Gant, who works at the Hal Jensen Recreation Center, and Crystal provides a safe and nurturing space for children to learn and grow. And then we have Kiki Lockett with Unlocked Potential, teaching children life skills through the fundamentals of basketball. All of those people had a vision. And so they are living their vision, they're fulfilling their vision, and we get to stand behind Kevin, who was a former student of mine, Crystal, who has been a longtime friend of mine, and Kiki, who has been, I've been a mentor for her. And so I get to stand behind them and lift them up. And so tonight, this afternoon, what we heard was about the experiences of living in Flagstaff, the Black experience, the Black lived experience in Flagstaff. And now we get to take that information and we get to decide what we're going to do with that. So it's not just enough for us to come here 1 month out of the year, Black History Month, and hear what everybody has to say and then go away and don't do anything else for the rest of the year. But we get to stand behind folks like the ones I mentioned, the people here that are here on the stage, and we get to help them fulfill those visions that they have. And so we all have a responsibility in helping them to do that. And then the last thing that I'll say is that when I heard the theme, I thought, wow, what an amazing theme that the students came up with, like students, faculty, staff, all of you came up with, that it really does say a lot about who we are as a community and as a country. And so it's important for us to listen to those themes that they come up with because it shows vision. Shows vision. And so thank you very much. I'm excited that you invited me. They wanted me to say a little bit about what I'm doing, and I am running for Flagstaff City Council. And you're more than willing to catch me on my way out the door and have at me if you want to ask me any questions. Councilwoman House is here, and she is also rerunning for council. And so I'm sure she will say the same thing. You're more than free to ask her any questions. If you are a registered voter in Flagstaff, I would encourage you to sign petitions. You have until March 23rd to sign petitions of anyone who's running for council. And some of them are online petitions and some of them are on paper. And so I would encourage you to go out there and take a look and sign a petition. It is not a vote, it is to get people on the ballot so that you can vote in November. And so with that, thank you very much. Students, I already told you I'm at the Murdoch Community Center. Southside Community Association operates that center. We have historically been the keepers of the Black community vision, whatever, in Flagstaff for over 20 years. And we are there Monday through Thursday from 10 o'clock until 4 or 5. And then sometimes on the weekends when we have programs and events happening in the center. And as they said, South Side historically was a home where Black community lived. And so that center is still there, and it is a place of refuge for African American, Black, Hispanic, whoever wants to come into that center. And like I said, we're usually there. The doors are open, and come by, stop by, and see us. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Deb. I just want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and for supporting us. This is CCC's first Black History Month event in 2 years, and I definitely think by the turnout of this, you have to do another one next year. I just want to thank everyone who helped me put this together, and I want to thank especially our panelists for getting a million emails from me saying, hey, I'm going to give you the questions, I promise, thank you. But thank you for sticking by me. And I also want to thank the Black Student Union for showing up. I know we don't have many members, but every single member came to our event today, and I think that's awesome. And I just want to thank all the faculty at CCC, and also tell students about the Black Student Union. We are here. When we table for club days, we get a lot of questions like, oh, I didn't know you guys had a Black Student Union. Well, we do, and we're here, and we meet every other Thursday. Next Thursday, we're going to be meeting to discuss Black love and relationships. I implore you to invite people you think would like that topic, and thank you so much. That concludes our event.